All right. Well, we're recording this webinar today, so we'll put it out there. Uh, I think we have a bunch of people registered, and I've heard from some folks who are interested in getting the recording that couldn't get here today. But we're going to talk about niches, and I'm excited to be joined by Todd Howard, who is the creator of the Niche Framework. He and I have been working together on a few different things. I've gone through his program to figure out some niching around one of my businesses, and I just think it's going to be really helpful and important for a lot of accounting firms. So, Todd, do you want to do kind of a quick introduction of yourself here?
Yeah, that was great, great, Matt. Thank you. I am founder of a company called Grow a Niche Business. And later on, if you want to check that out, that's the URL, growanichebusiness.com. And what I do is I help companies find their niche and then use their niche identity as a strategic tool. And a lot of companies are trying to be better at something, or there's all kinds of different growth strategies. But I think one of the most powerful growth strategies is to figure out how you're unique and leverage that. And so I work specifically with companies to help them find their niche and then follow that strategy.
Yeah, I've been working with accounting firms for a while now. You know, I've had my marketing company for about 7 years, and some of my first clients were accounting firms. And then about 2.5 years ago, we really decided we're going to focus on accounting firms as our niche. And one of the things I learned actually from Todd is that there's more to a niche than just picking a market or an industry. So we're going to get into that. One of the things that I've heard a lot from accounting firm owners is the idea of having a niche. It's There are a lot of obvious advantages to it, and we've heard about the advantages, but there's also some fears and challenges that are associated with it as well. And so a thing that I often hear is, well, we don't want to just focus on one industry because, what if the economy does something, right? So if you were really focused on hospitality going into 2020 and then all of the hotels and everything shut down, I mean, on one hand, they probably really need a good accountant during that time, but you're not bringing in many new businesses. No one's starting up in that space, and a lot of money is going away, and so that risk factor is kind of a big thing. And so I found that a lot of firm owners like the idea, recognize some of the benefits, and then have some hesitation about actually pulling the trigger. And some of that I think is based around some misconceptions of what it is. To have a niche. The obvious answer that I think most people hear is, well, we'll do accounting for, such and such industry. But I want to throw it back over to Todd. Todd, can you kind of explain why we shouldn't be thinking about niches in terms of purely like industry or market terms?
Yeah, so I'm gonna back up even a little bit further. I think that you're right on the money that a lot of people they have a perception that a niche strategy equals risk. I actually think it reduces risk. I actually think that there's a way to approach this so that you're not exposing yourself. You're really honing down into something that allows you to perform at a higher level with a smaller subset of the market. But to come back to your question, you're asking sort of what is it that why should people not be afraid of uh, going after a particular market? Is that what you're asking me, Matt?
Well, yeah, I think the thing that I hear is there is a question of, doesn't niching mean that I have to choose one market? And so there's
Got
that
it.
fear that I'm limiting myself by
Yeah.
choosing one, and I'm cutting off. I'm both exposing myself to risk because
Yeah.
I have all my eggs in one basket, but I'm also limiting myself because I'm now not working with a lot of other folks that could be good clients for me.
Got it. So yeah, it helps if I actually define what a niche is. So a lot of people think a niche is a market, and they think I'm choosing one market, and therefore I'm saying no to all the other markets. That's where the risk comes in. But the reason that they sort of struggle with that perspective is because at a fundamental level, they believe that a niche is a market. And so that sets them off down a direction of ultimately being afraid. But I want to give you a different definition of a niche. A niche is actually not a market. This is surprising for people. And the reason it seems like it's a market is because when you ask someone, what is your niche? They answer by describing a market. I was at a conference. Matt and I were together at this conference and actually spoke together a few months ago. And I asked a lady, what is your niche? And she said, I work with women-owned businesses that make $3 million or more. And it's a very reasonable answer to the question, what is your niche? But if you were in the lobby overhearing us, you would think, oh, a niche is a market. I wish I had a niche. Therefore, I need to choose a market and then I'll have a niche. But the reason that it doesn't work like that is because simply choosing a market does not prevent someone else from choosing that same market. In other words, if you were to say, well, I work with women-owned businesses that make $3 million or more, someone else could just as easily say, well, I work with women-owned businesses that make $3 million or more. And now you're right back to square one where you don't have any way to stand out. And worse yet, there's a customer that feels like there's two people speaking to her saying, we have something just for you. Another way to sum all of this up is that simply choosing a market does not give you a defensible position. It's just your favorite market. You like working with them, but so does everyone else. But once you're not there, you're not defensible. So the next question becomes, okay, well then if I ultimately need to find a market, but I can't just choose a market because that prevents me from getting a defensible position, then how in the world do you find a niche? And the answer is, and this is your new definition for a niche, the answer is you have to find a unique approach. A unique approach will lead you to a market, but it will give you a defensible position once you get there.
Mm-hmm.
So let me stop. I have a couple examples, but let me just stop in case you want to react or there's any questions we need to answer about that right now.
Well, I'll give my 2 cents here just from my own experience. One of the big reasons why I'm big on this idea of niches for accounting firms is because marketing agencies like the one I have, there's a lot of similarities in terms of it's kind of an advisory sort of role in many ways. Professional services, we're not dealing with products. There's a lot of similarities in the business model. I have found so much advantage in going in a direction of a niche. And in a sense, I kind of went a backwards way about it. At first, I chose a market that I thought was going to be really good. And what I found going through that process was we developed processes and insights and knowledge, and some of the things that were unique about us really became something that was more defensible. But if I could do it over again, I would do it in the other order, where I would really do the work to figure out why would I want to go in this direction, and why would I choose this market because of particular aspects that I can bring to the table. I'm a story brand guide, and I'm a big believer in this idea that the customer is the hero and the business or the provider is the guide. And in order to be the true guide, you have to know, like, why would they want to choose me, not just why do I want to choose them. And that's, I think, one of the problems with taking a market first approach or idea around niching is I want to work with them because they're stable businesses, they pay their bills on time, they're easy to work with, they trust my expertise. Those are all great reasons to go in that direction. But this idea of having a niche means why am I a good fit for them as well on the other hand, because just like you said, Todd, there's even within these industry niches, there can be a lot of competition. There can be a lot of accounting firms that are going after e-commerce companies or real estate agents or dentists is a big one. And so you can't just have a market and then think your problems are solved.
That's right. I want to give a couple of examples because it really helps people. I think it's a fundamental shift when you realize a niche is not a market, it's a unique approach. A couple of examples that will really solidify these or this idea. Now, these examples are not financial advisors, I tried to pick people that everyone would easily recognize. So the two people I'm going to use as examples are Simon Sinek and Jocko Willink. Simon Sinek and Jocko Willink are in the same market at a certain level. They both focus on executive leadership. There's this idea that if we can change the mentality of the leaders, the company will grow, people will buy, teams will perform, all of that. However, if you know anything about Simon Sinek and Jocko Willink, you know they are absolutely nothing alike. And the reason is because each of them have a very unique approach. Simon Sinek has an approach that says the way that you motivate people is through inspiration and optimism. You inspire your customers to buy from you. You inspire your leaders to follow a certain path. You inspire your teams to follow your leaders. And Jocko would take someone very much down. Simon would take people down a certain direction. Jocko, on the other hand, is going to come in with his battlefield leadership mentality hat on and say, the way that you get a company to perform, teams to perform, is you create better leaders, leaders that have ownership and they understand the concept of battlefield tactics and strategies and chains of command and all of that. Two people that each have a very strong niche. It doesn't matter how many Simon lookalikes come up, no one will beat Simon Sinek if you like Simon Sinek's approach. Same thing for Jocko. They have a defensible niche, but it is only because of the unique approach they have found. And so that gives you an idea of the strength of finding a unique approach that will lead you to a market.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty easy to figure out who Jocko works with and also who Simon works with. They find a market pretty easily, but the defensibility of their position comes down to the unique approach that they have defined for their company.
And just to ask this question, Todd, it's not that we're saying the end result might mean that you still choose that you mostly want to work with real estate agents or dentists or something like that, right? So the unique approach isn't just saying don't ignore industries and just focus on, well, I guess I would call it, there could be a tendency to think, oh, is this just like fuzzy differentiation versus like hard differentiation, which is what we typically think of as choosing a niche.
Yeah, so I have found this to be true. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Your market expands when you niche.
Hmm.
What you do is instead of tapping into an industry, you tap into a psychographic, you type into fundamental problems. Let's think about Jocko for a minute. Who is Jocko's market? It's not fair to say Jocko's market are S&P companies or technology companies or financial advisors or whatever. The answer is his market is found across all of those industries, but he's able to hone in and say, but they suffer from this particular problem.
Mm-hmm.
Had Jocko said, I want to be a leadership coach and chosen a market, I think he'd be struggling. But when he put that decision off and said, I want to find a unique approach, and he tapped into something that he could do better than anyone else, he found that that cut across multiple industries, and the sum of those potential customers is much greater than if you look at one industry.
Mm-hmm.
Industries actually get stronger and weaker over time. You can kind of look at the last decade. I'm working with a company right now in the veterinarian space. Over COVID, everybody got a pet.
Mm-hmm.
Vets are blowing up. The animal industry is blowing up. But that wasn't true several years ago. I don't know how long it'll be true again. And so if you sort of are watching for the hot market, you might be in for a short ride.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can find your unique approach, you can actually apply it to multiple markets over time.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk just a little bit then about some of the tangible benefits around choosing a niche, and I'll bring my kind of marketer's hat. So because we work with a lot of accounting firms, the easy one for me to say is that there are different marketing channels available when people have a niche or have a clear idea. This is kind of downstream a little bit. When you really know exactly who your ideal customer is, there are some different channels that open up. And from a marketer's perspective, one of the big challenges we have with a lot of firms is they look like every other firm. We don't know how to, turn who they are into messaging or know which channels are going to work best for them because they don't really know who they are and they don't have a unique approach. And so instead, we just try to go one of the options is really just to go with volume, which is more expensive and often you get fewer qualified leads there. So I'll just say, as a marketer, I love working with firms who have real clarity around what it is that they offer, who it's ideally for, their unique approach because of that differentiation piece. One of my mantras is different is better than better. It's so much easier to market a company that is in kind of thought of as a different category or a different way of approaching the service than just to try to say we're better than the accounting firm down the street. That is very hard. And it's kind of, you've got like brute force is sort of your only option really in that space. So marketing is a big one. The other piece that's really important, I think, is the process and the people side of things. When you have a really clear approach, a lot of us who start businesses like solving problems. And so it's fun to work with different clients over and over again because it's a new problem every day. But it's hard to develop clear processes that you can train and hand off to other team members if you are the most important cog in the system. And so by putting your energy into figuring out what is our unique approach as a business, it's something you can train and hand off and scale. And so there's a lot of opportunity, I think, just on the operations side when you figure out some of this stuff. And then the last one that I think is like really appealing to people is that you have so much more pricing power when you have a unique approach and you are seen as something different than what they can get anywhere else. So you can charge much higher rates than if you're seen as a commodity. And really, at the baseline, commoditization is just when there are when everybody sees you or when they see you as interchangeable with any other firm out there. Now, you might not be interchangeable, but if you haven't done the work of positioning and messaging, it might look like you are interchangeable. And so then what happens is people end up comparing on things like price. And you never want to be in that position. You want to be pushing towards the premium pricing, and that really comes often through having a clear niche and a clear identity of who you are.
That's exactly right. I'll echo a little bit on that last one. People hear that if you have a niche, the value of your services go up. I can confirm that is absolutely true. You're not going to get into commodity pricing. You have to execute upon your niche correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But when you resonate with a subset of the market that believes you created a product for them before they met you, and that's key. I work with a lot of consultants and firms and advisors, which I know sort of falls in the group that we're talking to today. Advisors that basically they have a discovery call of some form and they say, client, you tell me what you need me to do, and we're going to hustle and we're going to do it. It's a very different experience when you come out of the gate and say, I am an ideal choice for people that go through this situation or need this problem fixed or whatever. And here's how I do it. And when you put that on your website, that in your sales material, or you speak about that at a conference, people know that you have created a solution for them before you met them. Your level of expertise in their eyes shoots to the roof. That's the road that leads you down to the valuable products and services that cannot be eroded. It builds instant trust. So I very much like no, don't go in and say, hey, I'm a great athlete, and so I can do a lot of different things for you. What do you need? Come in and say, I played this position really, really well.
Yeah. Well, there are benefits of niching. There are some challenges and concern. And if for those of you who are live on the webinar, if there are things that are popping into your mind of like, yeah, but we'd love to hear about those and we'll address those. We're going to have some Q&A at the end. I think the big question though that leads out of all of this is, okay, I get it. Again, I think niching is a good idea. Todd, you've changed my mind a little bit on what it means to niche. So it's not just a market or an industry, but there's still the question of like, okay, yeah, but how do I do that? Like, how do I figure out what my niche is? How do I choose the right one? And I think there are some people probably who are seeing this or thinking about it and be like, well, I'm already on my way to choosing a market. Like, do I need to back up at the beginning, start over? Where do we land? And how do we figure out what a good niche is for an individual accounting firm?
Yep. So let's talk about how you find your niche. Or to say this differently, now that we've kind of got a different perspective here, how do you find your unique approach? And so I'm going to share my screen and show you how that's done. So, Matt, can you see my screen? If you
Again,
can, everybody
you're good.
can. Okay, good. Um, so this is a framework that I put together that helps people find their unique approach. And there are 5 stages in this. And the reason there's lots of backstory here, but at a very high level, every successful niche has these different elements figured out, and they all come together to give you your unique approach. So the first one is we take a look at your unique abilities. We want to make sure that whatever niche you create, I want to be able to leverage all of your expertise and weed out all of your weak spots. And so finding out what are your unique abilities, and it can be for you personally, if your firm is really an extension of how you personally do business, then fine, it's built around you personally. It may be that there's sort of 3 or 4 people in your firm and they're sort of the brain trust. They're the ones that you don't ever plan on leaving and you want to build your business around. Whatever the case, there are a group of unique abilities, and we need to identify those and figure out how they can work together, how they help the customer. Um, Once we do that, we're going to take the second step, and that's take a look at the customer journey. Now, a lot of people have heard that a product solves a problem or a service solves a problem. And so they think about it from that perspective. And that's true, by the way. But for our purposes, it's way too simple. I don't want you to just go, well, it's not this problem. Maybe it's this problem. And you kind of bounce around. What I want to do is have you zoom out and recognize that there is a customer's journey. A customer starts somewhere before they meet you, and they are trying to accomplish something in the big scheme of things. And along the way, you're going to come alongside them and help them accomplish that. When you back out and look at this as a journey, you start to realize I could help them here. I could help them here. I could help them in this particular way. And all of a sudden, you define a very unique journey that differentiates you from everyone else. And I'll go back to the example we had of Simon and Jocko. I bet if we could drop in on day 30 of Jocko's journey and Simon's journey, we'd have 2 completely different experiences.
Mhm.
So we want to think of it not as a problem we're trying to solve, but as a journey where we're getting engaged with the customer and we're helping them along that journey. The third thing that we're going to do is take a look at the competition. It doesn't do us any good to come up with a great idea second. You want to come up with your great idea and then check in with the competition and say, okay, what do I need to do to fine tune this so that it truly is unique and valuable? Without veering outside of what I do really well, there are some tweaks that need to be made. And we go through a process that I actually show you how you find out what your competitors do that really matters and how you make the changes that you need to.
Todd, can I
Yep.
jump in real quick? Just
Yeah.
on the competition side, I think one of the key things is the goal of finding a niche is not to find an empty space. It's to define your space within something. And so having competitors can actually be a good thing because it tells you there is a really good market in this area, but your niche becomes your unique approach. So even though you're next to competitors, you're not there's no blank spaces available. I guess is my point. There's competition in every little market industry, and so this is one of the key things that's so powerful about having the unique approach definition rather than just a market definition.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you made that point. There are not a set number of buckets out there, markets, and there's kind of a grab going on like, "Oh, did you get that?" It's not like that. You create your unique approach based on your team's abilities, perspectives, and all that. The space that Jocko fills did not exist until Jocko filled it because he leveraged everything he had to create it. And as a result, a subset of the market all of a sudden went, wait a minute, I can work with, Acme leadership coach, or this guy is doing this thing that really makes sense to me. I'm going to go work for him. And so, yeah, we actually create your niche, and that's really important. So the fourth thing, once we figure out those first three pieces, then we take a look at the market. And again, this always surprises people. People want to start with the market and then they want to back into something that's really going to help them in that market. We're flipping that around. We're going to find out what you do really well, leverage that, and then ask who is best served by what I have to offer. You always come to a different conclusion that you currently have, but it's nearby. Most people go, oh, I work with those guys sometimes. I didn't know that they were the ones, though, that were my ideal client. And now I see that. The fifth thing that we do is we talk about your delivery. It doesn't do any good for you to niche your marketing. It's important that you deliver your unique approach to the subset of the market that gets the most value out of it. If you do that, you're sort of closing, in sort of marketing terms, we say close the story loop. You're saying on the front end, I am unique. I am here for you. We are a perfect fit. And then you deliver on that at the end, and they get this sense of confirmation. I worked with the right person. And when they run into somebody who is like them, or maybe they're different from them, but they share some of the characteristics that connected you with them, they refer you. And this is why it's a very powerful growth tool for you to find your niche, because now all of a sudden you start attracting your ideal clients, and your ideal clients are actually very often friends with people that happen to be your ideal clients as well, because people sort of gravitate to people that are like them. So those are the 5 things that you go through. As you go through this framework, you will find a unique niche that's going to give you a defensible position. And after that, the work is to execute on that. You have to obviously do some things. If you're here and you find out that, the perfect spot is here, you have to bridge that gap and do those things. But with every step you take, you're getting more of your ideal customers, less of your non-ideal customers, and all the benefits that come with it. Shorter sales cycle, lower cost, higher quality, you name it. I could go on for half an hour about all the things you get just as a result of understanding the strongest position that you can put your company.
Mhm. One thing I'll just kind of bring up here is my so my experience with this framework was I came into it. This was not for my marketing for accounting firms business. I have multiple mini companies that are happening, but I went through this framework with Todd and a small cohort of people from one of my other businesses, and I went into it with what I thought was a pretty clear idea of what my product was going to be and who my market was. And so I had already started in this, some of these things in my mind. And what was really helpful though is going into it with a bit of an open mind of like, let me try to set aside who that market is and what I think the product is, did actually really open up a few opportunities that I had not expected. And I think really helped sharpen what I thought was my niche. And the reason I bring this up is I think that a lot of accounting firms have something that they think of as their ideal market or their ideal customer, and they're already moving in that direction to some degree. And so what I would say is that using this niche framework, it has two places. One is I think I should niche and I have no idea where to go. Like everybody says I should niche. So there's this like general benefit that you're after. You don't know how to figure out what it should be. I think the other one is I think I kind of have a niche or I have a clear market, but I don't know if my approach to it is very sharp and is very differentiated to other people. And so, what I would say is, whichever bucket you're in, you should have a little bit of an open mind to expand that. It's work though to do it, right? So to like go through these things. Todd, do you want to talk a little bit like when just kind of explain the workshop model, and when you have helped people go through this, you really have two ways of doing it, but can you kind of explain, there's like the company, private workshop version, and then there's the cohort version, which, spoiler alerts, we're going to be running one of these pretty soon for accounting firms. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but can you just talk about like what's the process that you do to help companies figure out what their niche is?
Yeah, there are so the two different models, they go through the same process. The two models are sometimes I work directly with a person one-on-one or their company, and it's really a deep dive. The other model that we use that you're referring to that we're going to offer to this group is a group session. Group sessions work really well if everyone in the group is in a similar industry, because then any of the information I'm giving to one person is easily applicable to the other. And a lot of people, I give people things to think about and they're sort of noodling on that. And then someone else asks a question and then they come back later and go, man, I'm glad they asked that question because I was thinking over here and you asked something here. So group really works in this environment. But either way, we go through those 5 components that I talked about. Look at your unique abilities, talk about your customer journey, look at your competition, identify your market, and then talk about delivery so that you can actually move your company into that position. The sessions are a couple days apart. Um, they are 75 minutes long. And the way it works is in the beginning, I'm going to explain something in more detail and then bring you to the point where I say, these are the critical things that you need to answer for yourself. And based on the feedback that you give me, I ask you, follow-up questions, and pretty soon you get a sense of, okay, now I see how this works, and I know how to, when I'm trying to extract my unique abilities or my customer journey, I now understand what that means. And so we spend about the first half of the 75 minutes with me explaining some stuff. The back half of the 75 minutes, I'm working with people on the call. We actually bring up a shared Google Doc, and you're talking, I'm typing, I'm talking, you're making notes, and I'm helping you figure these things out. Then at the end of the session, I'm going to let you continue filling in some of the blanks and expanding on some of the ideas that we've identified. A couple days later, we're going to meet again and take the next step. And what we're doing is over the 5 sessions, we're basically creating 5 custom puzzle pieces that come from our discussions. And when we put them all together, you have your niche identity. You've done a competitive analysis. You know exactly what products you need to build, what products you probably need to tweak. There's a lot of stuff that you can do once you understand this is what my business's strongest position is. There's a lot of downstream, decisions that you can make. So that's it. 5 sessions, 75 minutes each, very interactive and very quickly applicable. You will walk out of the last session with an energy like, somebody get me marketing, somebody get me products, you're rolling. This is not theory. When we get to the end, you're going to be ready to go.
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen real quick and just kind of walk through. So we're going to run a course starting on February 19th. Now, I have some questions in my mind. I know it's tax season, right? Accounting firms, accountants tend to be busy this time of year, but basically, I think this is a really useful, powerful thing for accounting firms. And so we really wanted to offer it. We're doing it now, or we're doing it in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a cohort. We're opening it up to 8 firms. And if there's enough interest, we're going to run the course. If it turns out timing is bad, or we don't have the people right now, we'll probably circle back after tax season and look at this again. But we would like to do one in February. It's going to be 2 weeks to get this finished out. Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday. So within 2 weeks, you'd have your niche. And what I've kind of identified and thought, like, there's probably 5 to 10 hours of homework outside the calls. I'm bringing that up because the one thing I'll say is this time of year, sometimes it's the owners who are the only ones in the firm that have any time right now. So this might actually be a really good time for some of you folks to be focusing on this strategic level niche idea, if that's something you're thinking about, so that you can get into implementation, in May and beyond. I'm not a hard sell person. The cost of it though is $2,500. If you're interested in this, feel free to set up a call with me. I'm happy to talk through the details. The one other thing that's going to be a little unique about this, compared to, I'm going to stop sharing now. When Todd runs these on their own, I'm going to be in the group calls as well. And then anyone who signs up, we're going to do a one-on-one strategic implementation call afterwards, with me and the firm owner to talk about, all right, what does this mean then for the firm? How do we start taking steps in terms of updating our messaging or our website, or what do we need to do? So I'll be doing some of that in a one-on-one thing at the end for anyone that goes through the course. Todd, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that was great. I want to reiterate, this is all actionable stuff. I think that once an owner understands their strategy, it allows you to plug yourself into almost anything in your business. I mean, I've done this with people. You can walk into any room in the company and say, "What are you talking about?" "We're talking about marketing." "Okay, great." And we know the sort of the anchor points of the niche identity, and we find out what they're doing and we go, "Okay, great, carry on." Go into the next room. "What are you talking about?" "We're talking about this." Find out a few things and you go, "Nope, you're off base. I need you to do it this way." And as the executive, you're always going team to team, and you're not trying to say, "Do it better, do it faster." Those are a little more difficult to, I don't think they're as valuable. But
Mhm.
as the owner of the business, when you can come in and say, "Guys, I'm bringing you back to this point. This is how we're unique. This is who we're trying to attract. This is why they like us." That is valuable information that you can give to your team.
Mhm.
And so anyway, very actionable stuff, but very applicable to what a owner's role is in their firm.
Yeah. Derek has a question in the chat that I want to address. So the question is, do you suggest different branding for different niches? And if not, how would you approach marketing efforts and messaging for multiple niches? I can tell you what I have done, and there are different ways to approach this. So when I decided to kind of niche into the accounting space, we launched a sub brand. So I had a generalist marketing company, and we decided we did want different marketing. And I am a really big believer in, if you have a unique approach that is specifically applicable for one group of people, but you have a different way that you might approach other things, an option for you is to launch a sub brand as a way to address that. And so it's a thing that I'm excited about. Obviously, there's, from the marketing side, developing a website and the materials and all of that, there's more work to be done. But there are firms that don't want to, or are not ready for whatever reason, to fully commit their whole company. A big ship turns slowly. Sometimes it's easier to launch a sub brand, or even just a web page that articulates this really specific, unique approach for the market that you have identified, that doesn't have to conflict with your more kind of generalist approach over here. So that is one direction. I've also seen firms where they really commit to a niche with their main brand, but then they also have some off ramps. And so, a classic example of this is where, if you have a really, I mean, this is, I guess, if you land with an industry and I have a client who does accounting for medical practices. But underneath the schedule a call button, it says not a medical practice owner, click here. And it brings them to other pages where you can learn, about some of the more general things, or if you have an offer that isn't a fit for these specific ones. I think my general advice is starting down the path of figuring out your niche. I wouldn't necessarily start down that path knowing where you for sure are going to land. You might, keep those roads open, but there are multiple ways to approach this that don't require you like cannibalizing the cash cow that is your main business in order to pursue a niche. There's ways to kind of run with both of those, at least for a while.
Yeah.
We're going to leave it open. If there are any other questions before we wrap up here, we'd love to answer them. So drop it in the chat or raise your hand if there are. But if there are not, I think we're going to leave it there. Todd, is there anything else you want to leave folks with as far as what they should be thinking about and how they should be thinking about things?
Yes, I would. I want to encourage you to think down these lines of think about your position. My background is in corporate and around positioning. Every successful company thinks about their position. It is the strategically speaking, it is the most important lever that you have in your decision making, whether it's building products, marketing, whatever. Constantly asking the question, where am I strongest? To whom do I have the strongest offer? That's what keeps you valuable. And so when you feel yourself saying things like, oh yeah, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that, and spreading yourself thin, I want you to think my value is going down. But if you can just get into the mentality when you're thinking about how do I make a better company? Who do I hire? All of that. Think about what makes me unique. What do I need on my team? What's the next step that I need to take that strengthens my position? That will take you down a different train of thought. And as the owner of your company, sort of captaining this, you want to be able to make those decisions. So use the idea of how am I unique? Where am I strongest? What is my positioning? As a litmus test to make better decisions.
Yeah. All right, we are going to leave it there. If you are interested in learning more about the course, the workshop that we're going to run, the 2-week workshop, you can go to. I'll drop it in the chat here. Marketingforaccountingfirms.com. That's my website. /niche. And that will bring you to the register page. If you have questions about it, you're interested, but you're not quite sure yet, reach out to me. You can get me at matt@benchmarkgrowthmarketing.com. Or you can get me at matt@bankercreative.com. As a person in niches, I have these multiple brands that are running. So reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions. I'd love to put together a cohort of folks to do this. I think it will be. I mean, there's obviously there's also obviously this is part of our, like, my business is to help firms do this, and so there's a selling aspect. But I wouldn't be here if I didn't think this was the right thing for the clients that I'm working with, and I see so many of my clients could benefit a lot from this process. It would bring so much clarity to what they're trying to do and amplify whatever marketing spend they've got, whether it's with me or with someone else. If you know your niche, you're just going to get a lot more out of the dollars that you spend promoting your company. So I'm going to leave it there. Todd, thanks for being on. Thanks everybody for joining the webinar today. We'll have a recording of this up, so if you want to come back and review it later, you will be able to do that or share it with your friends.
Thanks, Matt.